When U.S. Air Force Chief of Staff Kendall declared that he wanted to scare China with ultra-new types of weapons, Chinese Air Force Deputy Commander Wang Wei's response of, "As long as you are not afraid, let's meet each other in the clouds," is not only a diplomatic statement, but also a symbolic footnote of the displacement of the power of the two great powers in the airspace. It is a symbolic footnote of the displacement of the two powers in the air power track. From the technical embarrassment of introducing the Su-27 in the 1990s to the blue tail flame of the prototype of the sixth-generation aircraft breaking through the adjacent space, the Chinese Air Force is rewriting the rules of the global air war with the strategic determination of the national system in the past 30 years. And the critical 5 years from 2025 to 2030 will witness the pinnacle of this change from quantitative to qualitative change leap. If we rewind to 2017, when the J-20 made its debut with only 12 mass-produced aircraft, Western observers asserted that it would take at least 20 years for China to catch up with the U.S. Army's fifth-generation aircraft. However, China's aviation industry has cracked this predicament with its pulsating production lines. 4 J-20 production lines have pushed the annual production capacity to 120 planes, with the service volume exceeding 400 planes by 2025, and the supersonic cruising performance of the turbofan 15 engine has surpassed that of the F-22 after a full-scale change. What is even more subversive to the traditional cognition is the logistical revolution. The J-20's the stealth coating can be stationed in ordinary hangars for training, and the maintenance time of the whole aircraft is only 10% of that of the F-22, which is still captive in the constant temperature hangar, exposing the structural defect of the U.S. military in the high-intensity deployment. This capacity advantage is being transformed into a scale of crushing. By 2030, China's stealth fleet will exceed 900 aircraft, of which J-20 up to 600, J-35 naval type more than 300, constituting the world's only dual stealth fighter spectrum. If we take into account the small batch launch of the sixth-generation J-36 50ths, China will become the only country that operates 3 types of stealth fighters at the same time. At the same time, 800 J-16 heavy fighters to form a bomb truck cluster. Its 12-ton bomb capacity and 1,500-kilometer radius of operation can be the second island chain targets to implement saturation strikes. On the contrary, the U.S. military, F-22 average age of more than 21 years, F-35 because of the soaring cost of maintenance of a single aircraft was forced to reduce production. Western Pacific base wartime survival rate of less than 40%, into the modernization of the death spiral. U.S. Air Force Chief of Staff Brown's anxiety at this moment seems particularly real. China spends $1 to achieve the military efficiency. The U.S. military needs $20 to match. China's aviation technology breakthrough is by no means a linear catch-up, but rather a generational leap in key areas. While the U.S. GAD program is still at the conceptual drawing stage, China will complete the maiden flight of the J-36 by the end of 2024, becoming the first country in the world to validate the technology of a sixth-generation aircraft. Its subversive design points directly to the core of future air combat. The total thrust of the 3-engine variable cycle power system reaches 40 tons, supporting Mach 5 cruise speed. The plasma stealth coating can dynamically adjust the scattering of electromagnetic waves, which makes the traditional anti-stealth radar completely ineffective, and the ability to fly in the proximity of space is even more impotent to the current missile interception system. Of particular concern is the dual-route parallel strategy. In addition to the air superiority type J-36, the carrier-designed J-50 adopts Ramda wings, an omnidirectional stealth coating, and its anti-radar detection capability is upgraded by 2 orders of magnitude, compared with that of the F-35, forcing the West to re-evaluate the anti-stealth technology system. The maturity of the systematic combat network further amplifies the technological advantage. The Air Marshal 3000 early warning aircraft is equipped with a quantum terahertz fusion radar, with a detection accuracy 3 times that of the U.S. Army's E-7, and the world's first, Divine Eagle, unmanned early warning aircraft to build a 2,000-kilometer real-time monitoring network. 2024, during exercises in the Western Pacific Ocean, the network locked onto the U.S. Army's E-2D early warning aircraft from 500 kilometers away, and guided the J-16D to carry out electronic suppression, which led to the F-35's death. 16D to implement electronic suppression, paralyzing the Aegis system for 30 seconds. In the field of manned-unmanned coordination, the J-20 commanded the Attack 11 drone swarm through the air combat decision-making system to increase the speed of the OOD cycle to 300 times the speed of human beings. In the 2027 simulation, this system only took 120 seconds to dismantle the simulation of the enemy air defense system. The U.S. Army's Loyal Wingman program, which relies on traditional data links, has repeatedly failed to connect in quantum jamming tests, exposing the generational gap in its systems. The core of the qualitative change of the Chinese Air Force lies in the fundamental restructuring of the mission philosophy, accelerating the construction of a powerful People's Air Force that is integrated in air and sky and is well equipped in both offense and defense. The realization of this strategic goal is embodied in a threefold leap: long-range delivery revolution. The fleet of Yun-20 transport aircraft has been expanded to 300 aircraft, and the intercontinental projection of combat power has been realized with the Yun-20 refueling aircraft. 2025 China-Egypt Eagle of Civilization joint exercise. The fleet of Yun-20 aircraft was deployed to Egypt within 48 hours across the continent, which marks the maturity of the global reach capability of the Chinese Air Force. The Chinese Air Force's global reach capability has matured, upgraded offensive and defensive conversion. The Boom 6N carries air-launched Eagle 21 hypersonic missiles, which form a find and destroy killing chain with the J-16 fleet, when the J-36 carries 8 PL-17 ultra-long-range missiles in its built-in bomb bay. Its 3,000-kilometer radius of operation can cover Guam and the second island chain, constituting an asymmetric deterrent to the U.S. carrier fleet. Rule-defining capability. WS-15 variable cycle engine technology has been derived from the 7th-generation aircraft pre-development projects. China to equipment generation, pre-development of a generation, exploring a generation of, the rhythm of curing the technology generation gap. The U.S. Army GAD program is lagging behind due to the conflicting demands of the three militaries, and Loma has admitted that engineering is lagging behind by at least 5 years. As the U.S. think tank report lamented, 1,600 kilometers of ultra-long-range weapons have dismantled the traditional right to control the air, and China is the only country to realize the operational deployment. The rise of China's Air Force is triggering a reorganization of global air power. Faced with the pressure of the scale of the J-20 fleet, the United States has been forced to accelerate the development of 6th-generation aircraft, but the severance of its Navy F/A-XX program from the Air Force GAD has exposed the deep-seated contradictions in the tri-service joint warfare system. Europe is trying to break out through multinational collaboration. Britain, Japan and Italy, Global Combat Air Program, and France, Germany and Spain, Future Air Combat System, combined investment of more than 200 billion euros. The goal of 2035 deployment of 6th-generation aircraft. However, these programs are constrained by technology sharing and political games, and their progress lags far behind China's single-lead R&D model. In the Indo-Pacific region, the tilt in power is even more pronounced. Japan's F-15J average age of 38 years, parts supply relies on dismantled inventory. India's universal brand fleet cannot even realize the data chain interoperability. On the other hand, China relies on its local bases and the anti-intervention firepower of its rocket force to form the area denial capability of missile clearing plus fighter control area. When the J-36 to Mach 10 sudden defense quantum radar lock thousands of miles away from the target, Guam base of the SAD system interception success rate tends to be close to zero. This is exactly the Pentagon sleepless nights of the strategic reality. 5 years later, China's Air Force. The change is far more than the iteration of equipment itself. From the side guard apprentice, who looked up to others when the Su-27 was introduced, to the rule maker, who redefined the stealth standard with the 6th-generation aircraft. The essence of this comeback is the victory of the systematic military innovation paradigm. When Kendall shouted, "Scare China," he may not have realized the real deterrent never comes from intimidation, but in letting the opponent all strategic inputs into floating scrap metal. Just as the United States spent $300 billion to build the anti-missile system, in front of the Chinese hypersonic weapons, in front of the Chinese scrap metal. In the future, every cloud over the Western Pacific will be floating the code of algorithmic warfare, and on the title page of the code book, the signature of the new writer is already clearly recognizable.